The night began like most of our evenings lately, cold, distant, and heavy with the kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Ava sat across from me at the dinner table, her attention glued to her phone. Every so often, she'd smirk at messages she refused to let me see. The bluish glow from her screen lit her face more than the soft candles between us ever could. Tried to start a conversation about work, our weekend plans, even us, but her answers were short, mechanical, and void of warmth. It had been weeks since we'd felt like a couple. Then, almost as if to highlight just how far we'd drifted, she put her phone down, leaned back, and said with a careless laugh, "Closed legs for you." It wasn't just the words that stung, it was the tone, mocking, cruel, drenched in the arrogance of someone who no longer feared the consequences of her actions. For a moment, I froze. I searched her face, wondering if I'd misheard, but the smirk curling at her lips confirmed I hadn't. She was daring me to react, pushing limits just to see if I still had a breaking point. Lately, that had become her favorite sport, testing how much of her disdain I could quietly absorb. She mistook my silence for weakness, my patience for surrender. But that night, she learned otherwise. I didn't yell or slam my hands on the table. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply smiled faintly, took a slow sip of water, and said, "Then close wallet for you." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ava blinked, her smirk fading. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharp, stripped of the playful venom it had a moment ago. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone calm. "You heard me," I said. "You closed something important to me. I closed something important to you. Seems fair." For the first time in months, I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. Her confidence, so steady, so untouchable, cracked. My calmness unsettled her because it dismantled the power she thought she had over me. She tried to laugh it off, calling me dramatic. "You can't be serious," she scoffed. But I didn't respond. I simply finished my meal, stood up, and began clearing my plate. That simple act, my quiet refusal to argue, shook her more than any outburst ever could. "You're overreacting," she said. But her voice trembled slightly now. I turned to her, offered a faint smile, and replied, "No, for once. I'm reacting correctly." Then I walked out of the room, leaving her in silence. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel hurt. I felt free, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally stopped letting my love excuse her disrespect. The next morning, she pretended nothing had happened. She made coffee, greeted me with forced sweetness, even wore the dress she knew I liked. "Good morning," she said softly, testing the waters. I nodded, but didn't answer. My silence was louder than anger got as I grabbed my briefcase to leave. She asked quietly, "You're not actually mad, are you?" I looked at her and said evenly, "No. I'm just reconsidering what respect means in this house." Her face fell. That was the moment she realized the game had changed. Throughout the day, she texted me short, nervous messages. I was joking. "You're being too sensitive? Please don't ignore me." I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I wanted her to feel the silence she'd forced me to live with for months. By evening, she called. Her voice was small now. "Can we talk?" she asked. "When respect comes back," I answered quietly. That night, when I returned home, she was waiting, makeup smudged, eyes red, her phone untouched beside her. "I went too far," she admitted. "I didn't mean it like that." I nodded. "I know, but you meant enough of it to say it." "That's the problem." She broke down, not just out of guilt, but because she finally understood what it meant to wound someone who had loved her without conditions. Over the following weeks, things began to shift. The arrogance vanished. The sarcasm quieted. She started listening instead of dismissing. But I didn't rush forgiveness. Love doesn't erase humiliation overnight. One evening, as we sat side by side on the couch where she'd once mocked me, Ava whispered, "I never thought you'd actually pull away." I looked at her and said, "That's because you confuse love with weakness." But even love has limits. From that night onward, everything changed. She learned that power isn't about control, it's about balance. And my silence that evening didn't just stop her mockery. It shattered her illusion that she could manipulate me with words, because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't rage. It's peace. It's composure. It's the quiet strength that forces someone to face themselves. Ava thought she was asserting power when she said, "Closed legs for you." But in truth, that was the moment she lost it, because that was the night I chose self-respect over submission.